What's up, derp my G's? How are you guys doing? Got a request today, so thank you to Will Galloway. Tutorial on QUASAR Beacon, please. So one of my new serum patches on my latest pack called Motion. And yeah, this is one of these particularly nasty. It sounds like this. That's with a little pitch movement on, you know. But yeah, here it is. Maybe I'll just play it just in D for now. We'll just have a nice long D here. And yeah, it's a bit of a nasty one. It's one of those kind of sounds where, I mean, you can put a melody on it, but it's kind of almost works better when it's just like just one nasty sound, you know, in the context of a track somewhere. Yeah, the QUASAR Beacon. So let's talk about it. So it's basically two oscillators. It's a combination of a sine wave and a spectral oscillator. And then there's a little bit of noise. The LFO is fairly straightforward. It's just one LFO. Then we've got a couple of filters and then a bunch of FX. Yeah, some sort of EQing at the end. Plenty of stereo effects and distortion and things like that. So let me try and break it down the best I can, the best I know. And it's basically the FM between these two oscillators that really creates a lot of it, you know. So we start off with, essentially this is just an analog BD sine wave at -2. But I have put, as you just saw, I had the diode mode on, so it kind of makes it into like a distorted sine wave. And so everything's tracked to LFO1, so all of the modulations you see are just on this slow LFO, so it just kind of slowly goes up, right? And some parameters will be going one way on the LFO, some another way. So yeah, with the diode, it actually, so this sort of distortion amount, it actually starts higher up at 65% and then goes back down to sort of, I don't know if you can see that here, normally says, doesn't it? Yeah, it goes down to sort of 17. It doesn't, I don't think it quite reaches the bottom because the LFO doesn't actually quite go all the way to the top here, you know, but it's close. But yeah, so distortion, yeah, starts high and goes low. And also the wavetable position, right? So this, yeah, in this, what's it called? Wavetable, the analog BD sine, it just changes the shape of the sine wave slightly, right? This is a very subtle thing it's doing here. It's very hard to notice that, really. When the diode is on, you can kind of see the shape moving a little bit more. But yeah, just a very subtle one there. So sine wave is on, and then we're going to FM in from oscillator B, which is the spectral wavetable here. So the spectral wavetable, it's one that's built into Serum already. It's in the flute section, and it's the Betty flute. We love Betty's flute. So already sounds quite nasty, right? If I take off the FMs for a moment, right? That's how it is classic without FM. So it's on manual mode here. So I select the manual mode, and then I basically am responsible for the position myself here. So the position starts at 0, and that's sort of, you know, where in the sample it starts. And I just have a little bit of LFO movement on that. It goes up to about 10%. Just so we're sort of moving just in this first area of the sample, you know. The sample's quite similar the whole way through, but I still want to put that movement in so it gets that natural movement from the sound, you know. So the position is moving here, and this is 2 octaves. So it's in total it's 4 octaves higher than the sine wave, you know. So it's +2, and the sine wave is -2, and there's a little bit of detuning here at just -18. I haven't used the cut or the filter, haven't bothered to use that, but I have used the subharmonics, and this is great. And this is one of the things I like about the spectral section is you get to use all these spectral effects here, and there's loads I haven't even tried yet. But yeah, one of them, subharmonics, it kind of, yeah, it builds these like new harmonics into the sound, and sometimes they can be these new harmonics can be like great. Sometimes they're not, you know, it kind of depends. But it tends to do quite a good job at like making, you know, making these new harmonics. There's another one here. But yeah, sub harmonics, I guess obviously that's sort of targeting lower harmonics, obviously, you know. But yeah, basically, that sort of starts around 5%, and I modulate it to come on strongly. Not strongly, but to increase. So it goes from 5 up to 27. Okay? So that's basically the movement, you know, in the oscillators. But then I've obviously done some routing between them. So this is just by trial and error, but basically I decided to do oscillator B going into A via the phase distortion mode here. So it sort of starts up at 46% and then it gets modulated downwards towards 24%. And then at the same time, I have the FM. So it's just a different type of frequency modulation from A going into B. And this one, it starts at 38 and goes down to it starts at 37, I think. No, it starts at 38 and goes down to 30. It's a really subtle movement. But yeah, basically, you hear how it changes the character and makes it like really quasar-y. No, it makes it like really I don't know, what's the really dissonant, super dissonant, you know. It's a really dissonant sound. Yeah, it's nice. It's cool though, isn't it? It's got this nice like natural detuned dissonant like disgusting tone on it now. So I guess that's why you liked it, right? But yeah, basically it's the combination of those PD and FM things, and it's one thing. Yeah, that's sort of how I got that final final boss, the final boss tone out of the sound, you know. And it's something that's quite unique to Serum 2 because it's, again, I've mentioned it on past videos, but it's the fact that you can FM both ways at the same time. So mathematically, I don't understand, or scientifically, I don't understand how it works. Okay, I'll be quite honest. But basically, you know, in the older Serum, for example, or Vital or whatever, you know, you can usually just FM like one way. But in Serum 2 here, through the back-end algorithmic programming, for some reason, you're able to FM one into the other one while at the same time doing the other one into the other one. And then it gets very complex on the sort of harmonic results it gives. But it's cool because if you can really overdo it, like if you go up too high on these, it'll just destroy the sound and you won't really have anything left, you know. So, but if you use it in subtle amounts, you know, when you're going both ways, when you're doing one into one while you're doing the other one into the other one, you have to just do it in a really small amount, and then you can get these like new characters from the sound that previously weren't possible. So that's basically the core of the sound, the meat of the sound. Right, and then I've got a noise on here, the cymbal mic bleed or whatever it's called. It's a classic Serum one. I don't even know which folder it's in now, but it's kind of on that sort of folder that I don't know where it is. Oh, there, I think cymbal mic bleed. I think that's the one, yeah. So yeah, I just have that also modulating up, so it goes sort of from 0 up to 38%. Right, so the little bit of noise peppered in, little salt and pepper on top for the high end, and then we've run all of it through. You know, I've selected everything here, but it's only the oscillator A and the B and the noise that's on. But yeah, everything goes through a notch filter, and this is actually a little bit different. It's the band EQ12, but it's basically just a notch filter here. Bit of movement on that, so it goes from 69 up to just around 500. Drive around 17%. And again, I'm just notching things because I'm a notch enthusiast. Okay, I'm a notch EQ t-shirt collector. No, basically, notch EQs are always great because you can. The main point is to target the frequencies in the low mids and give them movement. and the notch allows you to do that in a subtle way where you're not taking out, you know, like all of the low end, or like yeah, you're just like, you're putting in movement into the expressive area, which is the low mid range. That's the important part of the sound that creates this expression of the sound, you know. So yeah, notch filtering it for that, to give it some shape. Another way you could imagine a notch filter is like if you're cutting off some broccoli florets from a broccoli tree. You know, it's got like, you know, when you cut your broccoli, it has the big chunky fat stalks always, you know, and it's not quite a nice shape. When you notch filter something, it's like you're sort of carving the stalk of the broccoli to make it like a nicer stalk. And that's how I imagine I'm using a notch filter usually to get my broccoli to look good, right? Cooking and music, they go hand in hand, don't they? Filter 2. So basically everything from filter 1 goes into filter 2. You select here, filter 2 is the output, right? And then filter 2, it's a flanger, wouldn't you know it? It's a flange, just a normal flange minus. And again, this is just for a little bit of character. I kind of just mix this in a bit. Yeah, sort of goes from 32% up to 83%. No other movements there. It's set to like 194 hertz. It just puts in this little squiggly shape and just makes the harmonics like slightly more interesting to me. But yeah, it's mixed in, so it kind of gets a bit stronger as it goes along. If you were to move the cutoff, you'd get that really obvious flanger effect. But because I'm not moving it, it's basically just like a complex filter shape where it's just like, it's almost like a really complex EQ that just like boosts certain frequencies and takes certain ones down just very subtly, and it just changes the character very slightly. That's essentially all it does, right? Okay. All right, powering through then. I think that's all of that done. So yeah, powering through to the effects. So the first one is the bode. This makes quite a big difference because this is giving it a massive amount of stereo, okay? Beforehand, you know, the unison is in 1 on both of these, so I haven't sort of stereoed it really, you know, up until this point, and I love to use the bode for that. And basically it's a case of, usually for me, it's just the blur and the shift and the range and the mix. So imagine the 2 knobs all the way on the left and the 2 knobs all the way on the right. They're the sort of main ones that I play with. So the shift, as you hear, it made this kind of tremolo frequency shifter kind of effect. But when I have it on a lower amount, like -9%, it's a very slow movement. And then this one's set to 12, this range here, that's kind of works, they kind of work together. And then the blur, it's almost kind of like how much of the effect, essentially. It's kind of one of the key parameters, really. So it's and then kind of mixing that in, the whole thing. So it's almost like I'm mixing in the stereo image that the bode has created here at 33%. So I've got 33%. But yeah, obviously not going up too high because then it's like just wide chaos, you know. So I left a lot of the mono in still, but 33%. It's quite a heavy amount of stereo. Okay. Then a bit of chorus. Again, this one's quite subtly mixed, 17%. There's just a little bit of movement on this sort of low pass filter section here. It kind of goes, yeah, from 2K up to about 11K. All right, then now things get more subtle, really, in my effects chain. I really sort of really subtle kind of notch shape here. Just goes from sort of 115 hertz down to 56 with a little bit of drive, and it's the band EQ12, and it's a really subtle one, just mixed in 68%. The mix also goes from goes kind of backs off, goes from 68 down to 27. These are really subtle tweaks here, my G's. Touch of delay, only about 9% on the ping pong. a touch of reverb here on the big hall reverb, with a bit of low end taken out, just around 13%. This one makes a bit more of a difference. It's the distorting the high end a little bit. So a low high splitter set to around 878, and then the rectify mode used as the distortion color in the high end, and this is the drive here is also being modulated, so it goes from 68 down to 0. So it's kind of more distortion at the beginning of the sound, and then it backs off a bit, and the whole thing's just mixed in 52%, and then a couple of EQs. So this is sort of like my little mastering tweaks, where just done a little boost around 283. Kind of felt like it needed a bit more there, and then I did a little bit of a high shelf, sort of backing off, backing off some of the high end. This is actually put on a macro here, so this is the damp. So basically, if I wanted to make the whole sound a bit damper, I can just turn up the macro here, and that's basically it. With the other macros, the wash essentially just modulates the reverb, so puts it through that whole reverb nice and to quite an extreme amount. And then you've got a few things like the speed, which is basically just the LFO here. So you can move the patch like that if you want. It's just everything that's on the LFO is just moving together like that. I think I tracked that probably to the global LFO section here, and that just does all of the LFOs at once, but there's only one anyway, so I could have just done it on the rate there as well. But yeah, and then the tone, I basically put the tone on basically the FM positions and a little bit of the distortion as well. So just there's little subtle changes in the FM positions and the distortion, give you a slightly different tone, and when it's up, it's kind of a bit more chilled, you know, not quite as screechy as when it's down here, you know. But yeah, so that's the QUASAR Beacon. That's pretty much the patch wrapped up then, and yeah, it's a bit of a complex one in the sense of how the tone was made, because it's using this sort of FMing technique where you're doing one into one and the other one into the other one at the same time, and that's basically how I got that sound, really. So that's a cool thing you could try. Again, it doesn't always work that great. You have to be careful on how much FM you use when you're doing it both ways, but that's a great way you can sometimes get cool results. And again, the spectral mode as well is great for doing something like that, because you can have these spectral special effects down here, and yeah, running that into the sine wave, you know, if you ran it into square waves or something like that, it'd be very different. If I've got any square waves here maybe, or a saw or something, you know, it's going to be harder to get like a nice clean sound, you know, because a sine wave's just always easier to FM stuff with. You kind of get smoother results usually, so that's why I sort of try to use the sine wave quite a lot. I could do a low pass square though, or something like that perhaps. But yeah, anyway, that's the QUASAR Beacon. Hope you like it. Hope that was helpful to learn about. But yeah, just trial and error really at the end of the day, my G's. Trial and error. But yeah, let's have a final listen to it then. So yeah, got a nice character on, nice and dissonant, that one. So hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, that's it from me today then. Leave a comment if that helped you out. Leave a like down below. Subscribe if you're new as well. Thanks for all your support on the channel, guys. And check out the links in my video description as well if you want this preset pack with QUASAR Beacon, the Serum Motion pack. Great preset pack there. And I've got plenty of other Serum packs, Vital, Phase Plant and Current packs on my site. Plus, if you guys ever want one-on-one lessons with me, want to learn more about synthesis or other things, hit me up either via email or book yourself in directly for a class in my calendar down below. And also, if you need mixing and mastering work, you can send me an email and come along and join me on Patreon to get some free downloads over on the platform there. And you can start as a free member, get some free bits, and then if you want to subscribe later and join our Discord, which is a private Discord, then you can get feedback from other members on your tracks, and also you can take part in our group live streams and much more. All right, that's it for me today. More from me very soon. Much love.